Man, what the? That's a new sound. Boy.
You turned blue for a moment. That's cool.
That was weird. All right, you
You,
guys ready?
you smurfed.
All
Good.
right. Welcome to Dead Headspace. You can find us on Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Ghana, and all other major platforms, which now includes Alexa. All you have to do is say, Alexa, play Dead Headspace podcast, and you'll get the latest from every Monday and Thursday. Throughout season one, season two starts mid January, and we will be going to a one episode a week schedule. I am your host, Patrick R. McDonough, joined by my co host, Brendan LaFaro. Say hi, Brendan.
Hello, everybody.
And today we are joined by author slash sweetheart of the horror community, Jonathan Janz. Hello, sir.
Oh, Patrick and Brennan, how you two doing? Great to be here.
We're doing pretty good. And well, I don't want to answer for you, Brendan. Why don't you tell them how you're doing?
Oh, you know what? I'm doing pretty good, but thank you for asking.
And for the audio listeners, Jonathan is wearing a shirt that I've seen on a few occasions, the Salem's Lot shirt. That's great. I think you said that's your favorite King book.
I
Am
think
I
it,
mistaken?
yeah, there are many in the running, but if I had to choose one, that probably would be it. Yeah, it's just there's something special, something magical about it. It's still, and I know he wrote it when he was young, but there's just something really, really different about that book that appeals to me. So yeah, the shirt gets a lot of wear, man.
That we all got our shirts like that. That's a great choice. The only Stephen King shirt I think I have is I know it's definitely Christine the movie,
Ah,
but I like it. I wear it a lot. My mother-in-law got it for me for Christmas. Needless to say, that's a good relationship right there.
yeah.
But Brendan, what's your favorite King book if you had to pick one?
Oh, actually, no, I'd go with Salem's Lot as well.
Okay.
I've jumped back and forth between Salem's Lot and it, and if I could include the Dark Tower series as a whole, that would definitely be in the running. But at any given time, it's usually Salem's Lot.
Nice.
It's a tough decision. My mind could change tomorrow, but for me, it's 11/22/63. It's just I like history. I like how it's different than his normal stuff. And reading the afterword, I think it was at the end of the book, he talks about how much research went into it. It shows. And it was really interesting how he painted a world where if JFK did not get killed, I don't know which one I'd take, that version or this one. So let's go to our base question, man. What got you into horror?
I think the first thing probably is where I grew up, the house in which I grew up. It was next to, you might have read this about me before, but it was next to a cemetery, and that's where I played quite a bit. Behind me was this deep, dark woods, and then on the other side of us, we were on the edge of town. On the other side of us was this woman. People didn't take mental illness seriously at all back then. You just
Mm.
people kind of made fun of others or just didn't talk about others who had problems of that sort. But this woman was seriously mentally ill, and I'd hear her screaming at all hours of the night, and um, it was really disturbing. And I think her husband ended up taking his own life in that house next door to us. So it was. I think that was the first thing. It was where I lived. It just. I think it really gravitated towards scary things. And then my mom was just a huge fan of all things scary. She loved Twilight Zone. She loved In Search of, the Leonard Nimoy show. And so that stuff was always on TV when I was little. And I remember back, I don't know if you guys are younger than me, but back in the day, you used to go to the library and get albums.
Mm.
So instead of books on tape, there'd be albums on tape or whatever. And she would often get the Tales of Edgar Allan Poe. So I remember when I was like 5, listening to The Pit and the Pendulum and The Telltale Heart, The Black Cat. And those are not really the normal fare, I don't think, for 5-year-olds. So I don't think I really had a choice. I think I was kind of I was destined. I was preordained to be in this genre.
Your mom's awesome.
She is. She's great.
That's all I know about her, but she's awesome. She's playing you vinyl records of the grandfather of horror
Yeah.
fiction. I mean, that's so cool, man.
Really.
You know what? I don't hear any authors talking about this one prose story by Poe, Eureka, prose poem. Have you read that?
I think at one time or another I've read just about everything, but that one certainly doesn't ring a bell. So if I did, it was a while back, and maybe I've never even read it.
You know, it's basically in a nutshell is his take on space, and back then, I want to say it was posthumously published. I
Uh,
could be wrong. It could have. Don't quote me on that, but I know it was towards the end of his life, at the very least. And basically, I know that, scientists or whatever they were, whatever the specific titles were then, did not agree with his take on it. It seems like he was kind of more right than the conventional ways of thinking back then, which I think is awesome because you got guys like him, you got guys like Jules Verne that are writing about underwater exploration, space exploration. You got guys like Mark Twain who wrote this great series of stories about Saint Michael writing letters to Satan back and forth, and it's just stuff that like the majority has to catch up with fiction writers, which is why I think that this is important. This is an important job, man. Like, think about it. I know we're going way off base with my initial question, but like the pandemic itself, if you take art away, I know, but I don't know about you guys, but I would have gone crazy within the first week, probably. I think it's an important job, and pulling back to yourself, because I'm getting way off base. What you do is very important, and you're prolific at it, so it's very much appreciated. But listening to the horror vinyl records, how long did you carry that on for? Did you and what did you graduate from that, if you will? Graduate's a weird way to phrase that.
no, yeah, no. I think that led to. There were other early experiences with horror and scary things, but it's funny. It was always I was always really terrified of the stuff I saw, but I still would make myself watch it anyway. I remember the Thriller video. I don't know how old I was. I was maybe 8 when that came out, and I was so scared when Michael Jackson turned into a werewolf. I was so scared. I was just absolutely. And I was the same way. I remember watching Halloween for the first time with one of my friends, and all it took was the opening credits. That music starts, and I
Yeah.
think it's a pumpkin, like a jack o' lantern. I
Yeah.
was gone. I was out of the room, but then I kept sneaking back and tried to watch more. And I think that's kind of my relationship. I've always been very affected by scary things, but for whatever reason, it's like I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but it is kind of like a drug. I always keep coming back for more, even though it affects me.
You got to channel it. Absolutely. So, at what point did you kind of realize that fear is your, to put it the way you kind of threw it out there, drug of choice, and started channeling it into writing?
Yeah, I think that I, Stephen King, we talked about him a little while ago, but he's the one who I felt like I can't imagine my life if George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life, like George Bailey ends up touching so many lives.
Hmm.
King would be like the George Bailey in this situation, and I'd be a little bit like Harry Bailey, who fell through the ice and would have drowned without him, because I was just adrift. I was, I mean, not like when I was 14. It's not like I was into a bunch of bad stuff, but I just had no self-confidence. I thought I was an idiot. And King came along in this book I read, The Tommyknockers, showed me that I wasn't an idiot. I just wasn't reading the right books. And I didn't know that it could be like that. I didn't know that the experience could be like that. So that's what really buoyed me and started to get me feeling better, kind of rehabilitated me and my mental or my self-esteem. And then toward the end of high school, I'd read several King books by then, and I just loved the way they made me feel, and I began to have that urge to make others feel the same way. And so I started to write my first horror novel when I was a senior in high school, and it was just total dreck. It was terrible, but that I guess when I started to try for the first time to write something. It would be a long time after that before I really got serious about it. But I at least dabbled back then in high school.
King has this way of writing that you're right. It has that heart to it, and it's even the stories that aren't as impactful as a Salem's Lot, as it are still impactful, are still memorable. And he has this way of writing that just sounds like somebody sitting next to you at a bar telling a story that sucks you in and makes you think, I think I could do this and I want to take a crack at it. And after you try, you realize it's not quite that simple. But I feel like there's so many writers that are going to kind of credit him in that manner. Like maybe I could tell a story like this too and affect somebody else the way this has affected me.
Yeah, yeah. King, for me, I mean, you look at different writers, and they're notable for this trait or that ability or this technique or whatever. But you talked about King. To me, it's just storyteller. It's just he's such a great storyteller, and I feel like I feel like his voice more than any other. It's like when LeBron James has a bad game, he has 17 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists. When King has an off day, he writes a book like Insomnia, which is, I mean, some people love it. To me, it's not as good, it's still better than most people could ever write.
Right.
But even at his worst, he's still good, and then it's just like otherworldly.
I was really hoping you were going to do a Tom Brady reference, but he's he's probably a Fake Man fan.
Are you a Bears fan, Jonathan? Because they made Tom Brady look awfully silly last night.
Oh, you know what? It's funny. Yeah, I guess Peyton Manning would be the guy I'd be. Yeah, because I'm in Colts territory, kind of halfway between Bears and Colts territory. I don't get into the NFL much, so I didn't know that happened with the Bears and Tom Brady last night. Is Brady? This is an idiotic question. This shows how out of touch I am, because like New England's been the evil empire. I don't think for you guys. You guys are Patriots fans. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm in Massachusetts, and Patrick is originally from Massachusetts.
I thought I'd seen at least one of you talk positively about Brady before. Here by Indianapolis, they're evil. They're always beating. But I don't even know because there was talk that Brady was going to leave New England.
He's with Tampa Bay.
He did go.
Yeah.
You're away from Belichick, right?
Yep.
I guess.
So, they got massacred last night. I take it.
They actually only won they only lost by 1 point, but Tom Brady forgot how many downs he had, and he called for the offense to stay on 4th down, but they were out of luck. It was unbecoming of somebody in their 21st year in the league. But you know what? That's okay. We can talk baseball instead.
That's a little more my wheelhouse. Yeah.
There we go. Both our teams are out this year. Let's not actually talk baseball.
Are you guys? You guys are Red Sox?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm Cubs, right? Probably.
Yep.
I love the Cubs so much, and they had the worst offense this year, man. Oh my gosh, and the 220 average. You could say small sample size, 60 games, but 60 games is that's substantial enough to hit better than 220.
Yeah.
I love my Cubs, man, but it was a rough year. I mean, they won the division, but then I think that they were kind of exposed in the playoffs. Anyway, it is painful to talk about the Cubs and the Red Sox this year.
It can be. It definitely can be. And I don't remember whether we finished 4th or 5th in our division, but does it really matter whether you finish 4th or 5th in your division?
Right? You had to be ahead of the Orioles.
They really tried hard to get that, to get that bottom slot. They work hard at that every year.
Take that, Richard Schismore.
So I won't keep our audience. I won't keep our audience on baseball for too long. But I actually am really curious. How did it feel to see the Cubs win the World Series? Was it 16?
Yeah, it was 16.
Yeah,
it was special. I got to be honest though, when the rain delay happened, I thought the rain delay was going to postpone the game, so we went to bed.
Shit!
I know, right? But here's the thing: it's like I realize, as kind of as a fan of the Cubs, I'm kind of damaged. Like I have childhood memories of of just total collapses and things that should never they wouldn't happen to anybody but the Cubs. I mean, I know that you guys, I don't even want to mention, because Bill Buckner had a great career, but
That was
you can
before I was alive, so thank God.
Yeah.
relate because you've seen the video footage, and
Yeah.
the Cubs have had like 5 of those moments. So yeah, so 2016 was really amazing. Even if I didn't see it live, even if I had to wake up at like 2:30 and see it happen, and then pick my son up and show it to him, it was still special.
My favorite part of that game was the aftermath of Bill Murray being hammered, talking to the reporters on the field. Who in their right mind doesn't love Bill Murray? Him and Tom Hanks are like, if you like comedy, there's 2 of the greatest ever.
Yeah, they're just 2 of the coolest humans ever, right? I mean,
And then you just see him genuinely excited for his team, like you and the rest of Chicago.
yeah.
It's awesome to see that.
I feel like if you don't like Bill Murray, I know this is kind of an absolutist kind of statement, but I wonder if that's a sign of evil. You hate Bill Murray, right?
It's definitely a metric to throw out there. Like that could be a job interview question.
Seriously, it's like I'm sorry, we're gonna have to terminate this. You're gonna have to go.
I don't know, man. I kind of grew up on guys like him, comedians like him, and he just seems like a good guy too.
It's like it's like he's only credited in like 2/3 of his movies. Like he showed like in Zombieland, he just shows up.
Yeah.
It's like the best moment ever. You're so happy when he shows up. It's like a movie. Then he shows up. It's like, oh my gosh, this is like a different level now because he's so amazing. He blesses you with his presence. Anyway.
And when he goes out, spoilers for Zombieland, which came out like over 10 years ago. When he goes out, do you have any regrets, Garfield? And that was his idea. You know darn well that whoever, whatever scriptwriter they had, Bill Murray put that one in.
Sure he did. I'm sure he did.
All right, off of baseball and Bill Murray, America's favorite pastimes, I have a question about balance because you just seem like such a busy dude. You're balancing family and I hate to say you come off as a family man because that sounds insincere, but you are a family first person. You're a teacher, and anyone who has ever had a teacher knows that those hours don't stick between 8 and 3, and you're incredibly prolific as well. How do you do it?
Yeah, I think that my life, like from the outside looking in, I think a lot of people would call it dull. Things that I don't do. There are things that I would like to do if I had limitless time. Like a lot of my friends, they like the couples will go out together, or they'll go out and do things, or they'll go at golf or whatever, or I don't do any of that stuff, and I'm not against people who do. Of course, I just don't. Because the 3 things you mentioned are basically the 3 things I do. I'm either with my family, or I'm teaching, or I'm writing. Only occasionally am I doing something completely unrelated. And whatever else I'm doing, I try to tie into those 3 areas. So it's like if I'll try to multitask. And also, like if I work out, I'm trying to also listen to a book on tape, or an audiobook, which will hopefully make me a better writer. Or if I'm working out, my son is down there working out with me, so it's family time. If I'm watching a movie, I don't play video games by myself or watch movies by myself. If I do that, then it's a family activity. Then my daughter is with me, or my other daughter, or my son, or my wife. So I don't know. I don't know if it's good or bad because I like to think it's balanced. I like to think it's healthy, but there are a lot of things that I don't do that I think bring a lot of other people joy, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But I think the reason why I am able to be prolific is because I am so laser focused on those 3 areas of my life.
But I think that, if you're happy, if you don't feel like something's missing, then you don't need to make time on your Sunday to go out to the golf course. You don't need to, have a bowling night or something like that. So when you do sit down to write, does it feel like work? Do you treat it like work?
There are mornings when it does, but mostly I just feel very happy to be able to do it. to have that opportunity to do it. But yeah, I won't lie. There are moments when you don't feel as motivated. There are moments when the words don't come as easily. So I don't want to sound too like Pollyannish or idealistic, but yeah, there are times when it's hard. Overall, though, I'm just very. I get more and I get happier and happier to do it the older I get, and just looking around, and there's so many things that can go wrong in life, right? And so in my advanced creative writing class, I have two creative writing classes I teach, one for eighth graders, one for upperclassmen, like juniors and seniors. And we lead off with this excerpt from On Writing by Stephen King. And it's his chapter about almost dying. It's his chapter about getting hit by the other Brian Smith.
I forgot about that.
Right? Oh, Brian. Than a Brian Smith that scares the care, and I think there might even be a third one that I've met. But yeah, the Brian Smith that's a terrible driver is the one that's life. And I think that it's good to remind ourselves of how fleeting this all is, how ephemeral it all is. And so the older I get, the more grateful I am to just have the opportunity to do it. And I hope my students feel a little bit of that. I know that they're younger. I know that they don't all want to be like published writers with their lives, but I hope they see it, because if you're looking at King's situation, it kind of saved him. Writing kind of is one of the things that in his family that pulled him through that grueling, awful situation. And, when you look at it as an opportunity rather than drudgery, because it is an opportunity, I think the more you remind yourself of that, the more grateful you become.
And King did say, I think it was in that book, that the reason, this is kind of repeating what you said, but the reason why he was so successful for so many years is because he had a routine. You need a routine. Even though he was on drugs for a while, he still had that routine with his family and whatnot.
Right.
And to kind of jump back to one thing, if your family is happy and you're happy, that's all that matters, man.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I tell you what, too, and there is no one size fits all.
No.
And I had a regret the other day. I just started thinking about it, and this is a little bit tangential, but I feel like I should say it because I've never said it anywhere else. I think that most of us, we try to be thoughtful. We try to think about other people, but we still say stupid things and we say things we regret. I realized, like, back in my early 30s, mid 30s, I kind of thoughtlessly, because I have friends who decided that they did not want to have kids. And that's such a personal area for people. And I would sit there and ask them, why don't you want to have kids? My tone was implying that, like, why wouldn't you want to have kids? And that was so and this doesn't have anything to do with this conversation, but it's just a thought I had the other day. That was so thoughtless of me to talk about it like that, because it's there are people who lead amazing lives that they don't have kids and they're perfectly happy. And I should never have said things in that way to certain friends, because I feel like I put undue pressure on them or I made them feel bad, because there are a billion reasons not to have kids. So one size doesn't fit all. In my particular experience, I can't imagine my life without it. But I wish, looking back, that's a mistake I made in a few conversations. I wish I never would have said that to people, just because I feel like I was really just obtuse. Because we're talking about family, it reminded me.
Yeah.
That came to me when I was like getting out of the shower the other day. I'm like, you're such a jerk. Why did you say that to people?
Well, I'm sure it comes from a good place where you're like, it makes me happy, so why wouldn't it make them happy?
Yeah.
I'm sure they would get that.
I hope so. But I just like it. I don't know, because I think we're also. I'm in my head all day. I see through my lens all day, and no matter how hard I try to be empathetic, I sometimes forget to be, and I sometimes forget to put myself in the other person's place. So thank you for letting me get that off my chest. It's just it's a regret I had the other day, and I've never said it before. I don't even think I've said it to my wife, but I just kind of wanted to say it. So thank you.
Yeah, man. And I mean, I've said this a few times, so please tell me shut the hell up if it's annoying. But when I say that you're like the sweetheart of the horror community, I don't say that to be funny. I mean it, and it's not just me. There's a lot of people that say it. I mean, you're kind of beating yourself up a little bit too hard, I think, and maybe that's rude of me to say, but if that's the worst thing that you've said, like you're good, man. I think.
Well, I appreciate that's very kind of you and generous of you. I appreciate it. Yeah, but I tell you what, man, and it's nice of you. I take that as a compliment when you say that. Totally. I don't take that in any way negatively. But yeah, I think I need to just like all three of us, man. I think we need to constantly try to be improving and constantly trying to see through others' eyes and understand their perspectives. And I fall short. I fall short sometimes, and hopefully I'll just do better next time.
That's a great well. That's kind of related to writing too, because you never want to just be like, you know what, I'm good for the rest of my life. Like with me, I'm not a bad husband, but every day I want to try to. When I don't think about it every day, but when I'm conscious about it, I'm like, I want to be better to Tara, man. Like I just want to make her happy. I want her, whatever it is. It could be something little. Like the other day, I was like, I haven't gotten her flowers in a while, so I got her flowers. So I'm like, Phil, she liked them. I'm like, all right, you did good today, bud. But I totally can relate to you. That's why I'm kind of bringing it up. I think it's a good thing to always want to improve.
Yeah.
Brandon, why don't you? I don't know how to segue this, so why don't you take it over?
Brendan, save us.
Brandon, save us.
That's my role on this show. To always look to improve and to just kind of keep that empathetic eye open. Of course, you can't write. You can't write. You don't even need to put anything else on that sentence. You can't write without that eye for empathy and being able to put yourself in those shoes. Otherwise, you can't create sympathetic characters and all that good stuff. So I'm actually kind of curious for personal reasons because I'm a teacher as well. How's your return to work been?
Man, you know what? I love it. I know you're a teacher. First of all, that's awesome. Or at least if I knew that, I forgot it. What grades do you teach, or what do you teach?
I do kindergarten through fifth grade music.
That's amazing. That is so. No, that's
Well,
awesome.
thank you. Thank you. Nobody usually tells me that, so I do like to hear it. No. I'm just kidding. It's very easy to feel underappreciated at the moment, though, as I'm sure you well know.
Yeah, no, it is for sure. But I tell you what, I think that a really good music teacher at a young age, man, I bet there are going to be a lot of kids who remember you. I remember my elementary school music teacher, Mr. Kaiser, so encouraging, and I still love music. I think largely because of him. And my wife is a voice piano teacher and coach, so she's, we love music. I'm the least musical member of our family, but I have so much respect. I just think it reminds me of that Robin Williams Dead Poet Society speech where he talks about, how medicine and all these other pursuits are necessary to sustain life, but love and poetry and music, these are the things we live for. And I think that's so true. I think it's an absolutely indispensable part of life. Music is. So I think that's wonderful. Yeah, and I'm just as you. I'm sure that you're loving aspects of the year like you do every year. We love our kids. We love our job. But the adjective I would use is exhausting. It has been so exhausting this year. It's just so, and I don't want to sound like I'm martyring myself because, when my grandfather was in the hospital, I saw what nurses have to go through, and they've been doing that, all along. During the pandemic, they've been doing that whole thing. They deserve. I can't even begin to tell you how amazed I am at nurses and how much credit they deserve. So I don't want to make my job sound harder than stuff like that. But it has been really hard. It's been the hardest year of my career, like emotionally, because of all the changes. It's I'm just on a nuts and bolts level. I'm disinfecting all the desks between every class, and trying to keep kids socially distanced. And kids are feeling very isolated, and so we start to feel isolated too. I mean, when you isolate people physically, they start to feel isolated emotionally. And by the way, I am totally totally for all the measures. I'm totally for masks. I'm totally for social distancing. I am like 100% into it. But that doesn't mean that it's all easy, and that doesn't mean that there aren't challenges that come along with it. And you see kids, who have to sit by themselves at lunch, and that's hard. That's really hard. It used to be like, the 10 kids sitting at a table, and now here's this kid sitting by himself because there are only two allowed, together, and so this kid's the odd man out, literally, and he's over here by himself. And the one time during the day that he could be social, it's so depressing. It's depressing for me to watch. How depressing must it be for a 15-year-old or a 17-year-old kid to go through? So I'm just emotionally and physically drained, man. I don't know how you're feeling, but that's how I feel.
I would echo not even almost. I think I would echo absolutely everything you said. And one positive that I've really taken away, one thing I love about my role as kindergarten through 5th grade is I get to know my kids. I have them almost, every year for a period of about 6 years. I get to know them pretty well. And I've got kids that I've known for like 5 or 6 years this year that because they are nervous, because they are just in a very unexpected, I guess, unprecedented situation, and because the classes are smaller, the in-person classes are smaller, I'm getting to know these kids better than I ever have before. And, we're doing a hybrid model. Kids are in 2 days a week and they're out 3 days a week. And the remote from home stuff it's not perfect because for the most part, the classroom teachers are having to do 2 jobs at once. It's not feasible. Superman couldn't do it. But the in-person learning that these kids are getting this year, they're never going to see this again. The one-on-one attention they get for those 2 days a week, the small group attention they get is really something. And if we have to look for a positive, I really think that's it, is these kids are getting that connection that you could definitely get some semblance of in past years, but not like when you have a group of 7 in front of you all day. On the negative side, I am putting so much hand sanitizer on that I feel like I have a sunburn on both my hands all the time.
Yeah.
But you're right; it's emotionally draining, and even in past years, that it's a taxing job. You are constantly on your feet, both literally and figuratively, thinking and adjusting. You get to the end of the day and you're tired. And there's an exhaustion I've never experienced before to this year.
Yeah, and the other thing with us that I forgot to mention is we're doing virtual and on-site learning at the same time. So I'm teaching virtual on the same day that I'm teaching I have 5 in-person classes and then a virtual class. And ordinarily what our load is 5 classes and then a duty. And the duty for English teachers in our school is often like study hall, which translates into grading time. All right, so I'm grading papers and stories during that time. Normally, this year instead of doing that, I'm teaching a virtual class online. I'm filming myself doing the entire lesson to an empty classroom, and then working with those kids, man. So it's so much more than it normally is. So I'll shut up. Anyway, Patrick, how do you feel about all this?
I'm not a teacher. I work at a wastewater treatment plant. So
Okay.
basically, I'm in charge of control systems for shit and piss water.
Go.
So what I do is I just see my coworkers, and I've worked the same Monday through Friday throughout all this. It's weird. My job's weird as it is because I see the underbelly of Atlantic City and the county, and nothing's changed on that end, and it's very strange. I've seen patterns that are weird. I see trends in people that don't poop and pee as much because the casinos were all closed for a while. So I can see the trend in the wastewater. It's a very strange perspective, and it's a job that is everywhere, but no one is. I didn't know what it was until I applied, and still, I was like, it says it pays so much, and maybe I'll get it. So for me, it's been on a trivial first world bitch that I have is I haven't been able to go to a movie theater. That's okay. I missed that. But I can happily say the last movie I saw this year was one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. Parasite. Oh my God. Have you
Great.
seen that?
I saw it on streaming and I loved it, but I didn't get to
So
see it.
good.
Amazing movie.
They had it in theaters for like 3 or 4 days at my local theater, and my wife was my wife was like 8 or 9 months pregnant, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna be a dick for a minute. I'm like, I gotta see this. It's not in the theaters after today. My friends are really into it, and she's like, fine, go. I'm like, yes. Worth it.
I remember something similar. My wife was 8 or 9 months pregnant with our first, and I went to go see Iron Man 2, and I brought her back movie theater nachos, and everything was good.
There we go. Oh, it's good olive branch, man.
What you
Absolutely.
what you got to do is when she says late at night or early in the morning, I want this. You're like, okay.
You do get used to that, and it's absolutely worth the effort because the alternative is just horrifying.
And to be fair, they're carrying your child, so you're like, I'll get you whatever you
That's
want.
very true. That's
Yes.
very true.
So I would like to jump to something more serious, which is your grandfather. And we said, well, Brennan said before we started recording, sorry. You were talking, so I didn't want to interrupt before we recorded. So I just want to send you my condolences too, because that's rough. I can relate with my grandmother, and I still miss her. It's been since 2006. I read your newsletter. Like you, she kept the family together. She was just a sweetheart, never complained. Little petite Irish woman that loved you to pieces, man. Didn't never complain about anything. More specifically, what I want to talk about is one quote that you wrote, and it's very touching and it's so simple. You even state that it's a simple quote. It's important for a kid to have encouragement. That's what your grandfather said to you, and you followed that up. And I'm paraphrasing this part that adults tend to forget that. I think that's true. There's a lot of times that, for example, and I know you're the guest, so I'll make this short about myself. For me, I've always wanted to be a writer. I've always wanted to entertain. It just so happens that I was also a writer, and my parents were always encouraging. Like they wanted me to go to college and stuff, but like my mom, my aunt, I can remember when I was a little boy, like I was like I want to write a game about pirates because my cousin's he works for a video game company. He's made some big games, and I'm like I'd like to be the guy that writes those stories. And they just sat down and talked it all out with me, and I'm like, I got this, that, blah, blah, blah. So without stuff like that in my life, and then the next one correlates to you two specifically. Without this one teacher in high school I had freshman year, which was creative writing, then again, or I might be mixing up creative writing freshman year, senior year, electronic writing. Um, Without that teacher that allowed me in creative writing class to write outside the box and encourage me to do that, without her giving me the award at the end of the year, because they gave a little paper awards to everyone, without her saying that I was the most improved, letting me read my comedy and my horror out loud, and being constructive and saying, basically, I got something here. Don't know if I'd be a writer. I wouldn't without my wife, first and foremost, but without that teacher, without my mom as a child, I wouldn't have it. So this is my super long way of saying I can relate to you about your grandfather, and I would really like to go back to that one quote because I feel like it also applies to adults that often we are not encouraging. I'm not talking about the horror community. I'm talking about as a whole, as a species. So any way you want to reply to that, man, go ahead. That was a lot to take in.
That's great. It's touching. Touching to hear about that teacher who did that for you and your family members who did that for you, because like you said, it is a simple concept in theory, but it doesn't always happen the way it should. I think we forget to do that, and I think the reason why it doesn't happen is because I just think that the human, and I could, it's fine if people disagree with this, but I think people are born selfish, when you're a baby, you don't care about your parents' sleeplessness. You don't care about anything but wanting to be fed or changed or whatever.
Right.
I think that, some people never get out of that stage. They just think about themselves. And then, I think all of us have the tendency to revert to that stage because, again, we're seeing through our own lens all day. And then we forget how much we influence others, how much the messages we send to others we're not cognizant of because we're so immersed in our own problems and our own worries and insecurities and fears and desires and everything else. And the fact is that when we are in contact with other people, it's so important when we can to encourage them. And I think that's why it's neat. People who do encourage us, they're very special to us because they remember to do that. And I don't think it's that common to remember to do that. I think it's more common to stay self-absorbed. And maybe that sounds cynical, but why is it that somebody who is so encouraging stands out so much? I think it's because that's a little bit abnormal. I think that kind of selflessness is maybe not what we're used to, and so it has an impact on us. How many teachers did you have growing up? I'm sure you had some good teachers, but you remember that one. You remember that one because that teacher really took the time to make you feel good about yourself. And so I think that that's something that we should strive to do. Obviously, we strive to do it as parents, but I think we should strive to do it, to other adults too, because we never stop needing encouragement. Just because somebody isn't our dad doesn't mean that person can't impact us. So I think I love it when I see, the guy, you guys, Kevin Watkins, you guys
Yes.
remember that name? Passed away, and that guy, I think the reason why people miss Kevin so much, I mean, obviously it's different for his family, because they had that special close bond. But Kevin touched so many lives in the horror community just by being excited for other people, just by thanking people for whatever they were doing or encouraging people. And he'd use that word rad, and he just meant it. He meant it. He thought it was so rad that you would publish this book, or he thought it was so rad that you would reach this milestone. And he did that for so many people. And there's a reason why that's special. It's because more of us should aspire to be that way.
I'm actually jumping the gun. Brendan was going to say something, but I feel it's really important that I point out one person connected to Kevin. That is Darren. I'm probably messing up his last name. Darren Kapoff, Kappauff. Sorry, Darren, if I messed up your last name. Those guys were like brothers. They were really close, and that's how I know about Kevin. I haven't read anything by him yet. I wish I have, but unfortunately, I don't have all the time in the world to read from all the great people I want to read from. But I have heard nothing but great things about Kevin, and I don't think it's the case of like he passed away. Let's not say the bad stuff. I think it's just he is a good guy. So I'm glad you brought him up because, today was the anniversary of him. As we record this, not as this goes up. Brennan, I interrupted you, I think, so why don't you jump in?
You actually didn't interrupt me. I'm sitting here absolutely ruminating on that, Jonathan, on that point you made about how special it can be when one person encourages us, and about how that sticks out not just because they did it, but because they took the time, and that doesn't come from everybody, about how it kind of stands out as a stark difference compared to the world around that relative, around that teacher, whoever it is. That's a really cool point, and I've never really looked at it from that perspective before. And it kind of ties in with, something I wanted to, not necessarily a question, but just something I've heard you talk about before and I wanted to bring up. And that's the idea of making sure to take the time to tell the people around you, whether it's relatives, whether it's friends, or even whether it's authors, that have made a difference in your life with their love, with their relationships, with their works, that you appreciate them. Because, I feel like that whole idea of mortality has come up more than once or twice or three times tonight. It's that idea that our time is limited. And if we, speaking just about authors, if we appreciate a work that somebody's put out there, to just take the time to let them know. And, I would throw out at you, Siren and the Specter is a special book to me. I'm a huge haunted house book fan. And I stumbled across that one when I was thinking about trying my hand at writing, and it inspired me to go ahead and try one. And I did finish a novella a couple months
Oh, wait,
ago. I'm
wait,
working
wait,
on.
wait. Hold up. Is that the one I just beta read?
That is the one you just read. Yeah.
Holy shit. Wait, you be
So
quiet because you are very humble. This kid, he has been writing for a very short amount of time. I've been seriously writing with a novelist, being a novelist mindset for 7 years. He's been doing for one. I'm just putting it out there, man. I didn't know you inspired that book. That novella, I just finished it yesterday. It's good and it's creepy. That's all I gotta say. Carry on, sir.
That's
so
awesome.
I would just say, if someone reads it, they're not getting Siren and the Specter light. But they are getting a book that I sat down and wrote because I read that book and I said, I want to do this. This is something, I want to make the time for. I want to carve out that slot to sit down and really give this a go. So this is me saying thank you for putting that book out there, and I appreciate your work, sir.
That was amazing. That made me feel like $1,000,000. So thank you so much for saying that. And I'm so happy that you wrote, man. That's awesome. And obviously Patrick is high on what you've done. That's so cool. I mean, I think
He
it's
sounds
amazing.
so biased, but he
He
it's
has
really
to say
good.
that. I've paid him.
No way. No way. You're not Ken McKinley. McKinley has to pay us when we say his name.
I've got a teacher's salary. Everybody knows that's a joke. Everybody knows I'm not paying you out of my teacher's salary.
That's fantastic, man, and that means a lot. I do appreciate it. I think that that's the thing. I think that I think most of us are afraid of being misread, and that causes us to not say things that we have an urge to say, and our urge to say them comes from a place of goodness and of good intentions, but then we don't say them because we're afraid of how we'll be perceived. And I think that, what you just said to me was amazing. Obviously, it felt wonderful. But I think that, the reason not to say that to somebody is because, you're afraid that others, like, so for example, like, I absolutely, like, idolize Joe Lansdale. Okay. And it took me a while and Brian Keene had to trick me into going up to him. But it's like Joe himself was talking about some of his heroes once I got to know Joe. And Joe gives you, he cuts through the crap so beautifully. Like Joe is the most concise, incisive, honest, sometimes painfully so person maybe that I know. But, Joe will say, tell him, man. If you feel that way about somebody, tell them how you feel. Because he started to talk about some writers that he never got to tell, and he still regrets it to this day. And then he also talked about writers that he did get to tell, like Richard Matheson and others that he did get they made to him, and that's a cherished memory for him, and he feels good that he got to do that. But there are others he didn't get to say that to, and it's like, what was I afraid of? If I analyze it, why would I not have said that to Joe? I would have afraid to appear like a fanboy. I would have been afraid maybe that others would think that I was sucking up to him. I would be afraid that maybe I would, speak in an incoherent way and make a fool of myself. And those fears are real. But you know what? Jack Ketchum said this, Dallas Mayer, to me. And I don't know if you guys have read The Dark Game, but the story is in The Dark Game. He said, and I'm not going to say it because I'm a teacher and I don't want to be on tape saying the cuss words, but F fear. It's like, those reasons, put those in a pile. Those are so far eclipsed by all the good that comes from telling somebody how you feel, right? If somebody thinks I'm sucking up to him, screw them. Who cares? Who cares that they think that? Because I'm not. I'm telling him I love his work because I love his work and I appreciate him. And if somebody else wants to gossip about me, thinking, oh, you're just trying to curry favor with this guy, screw you. I don't care. You mean nothing to me. Joe Lansdale means something to me. He's meant something to my life, and he's meant something to me as a reader and a writer and as a human being, and he continues to mean something. I care so much more about his opinion than this little peanut gallery off to the side. Screw those people, right? And then when it comes to feeling self-conscious, who cares, all right? I'm sure I did say something stupid when I met him, but you know what? I feel good because now we've got a relationship. And all these other authors I've met, you know, Brian Keene, when I first met him, when I first met Dallas Mayer, Jack Ketchum, when I first met all these writers, I'm sure I sounded like a gibbering fanboy, but it was sincere, it was honest, and I'm glad I said it. I'm glad I was honest. I'm glad I was excited because I am excited about that kind of stuff. And so I think that we just need to get over our fears, get over our insecurities a little bit, and it's good to do those things. It's good to say those things because you know what? And I'm not Lansdale, I'm not Ketchum, I'm not Keene, I'm not any of those people. But what you said to me, I can tell you, being on the other end of something like that made me. I started to float off the couch, man. I started to feel that made me feel amazing. In fact, I didn't even take the compliment very well because I'm like, you know, you feel so good and bashful. I didn't want to show how good it made me feel, right? But inside, I'm like pumping my fist.
That's what we'll use the video for. We'll post video of you turning bright red.
Me and Brennan talk all the time, every single day almost, and he's never told me that. So the fact that I feel like now he saved that to say that to you to surprise two people on the show.
Perfect.
I'm calling shenanigans.
That's awesome. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you waited.
Oh my gosh, I had something to say and I totally it ran right off the rails. So Patrick, you want to segue? You can take my job.
Yeah, Darren texted me and said, "Tell Jonathan I said what's up." He wanted to say hi to you. So I had to pass that message along. He's a good guy. I think you guys have talked.
Darren K we're talking about, right? Darren, I don't even know how to pronounce his name either.
I don't know how to pronounce his last name either.
Kapanoff, whatever it is, he's awesome.
Yeah.
He's huge-hearted, amazing human being. Love that guy. So yeah, please say hello to him for me.
Oh man, my heart just got tickled from that. I have a few notes, and one of them was back to before I jump into that, I do want to say, as far as like being genuine and stuff, as long as you know it and the person you're talking to, it's a bonus. They don't have to know it. As long as you know you're being genuine, like you said, who gives a shit what other people say? Because I've gotten accused of being a kiss ass when I'm just like, what are you talking about? This is just how I am. So I can relate. Like, sorry you don't understand people being excited about everything. I could.
Yeah, if our world, if we would stop bashing what others are excited about and like appreciate the excitement more, think about how much more fun everything would be. Think about how fun it is when somebody's excited about something, when somebody's passionate about something, right? It's so awesome. It's so fun, right? When you're excited about music, or you're talking about your wife earlier, right? I mean, when somebody's passionate about it, we need more of that, man. Let's fan those flames and let's all get excited. Life is too short to sit there like the two dudes in the Muppets up in the balcony, right?
Those are my dad's favorite characters. That's great.
Waldorf and what's the other guy? I forget.
Statler. Statler and Waldorf.
Yeah, they were named after hotels in New York.
Okay, there we go. I mean, those guys didn't have any fun.
I mean, maybe just
fun being mean.
They laughed a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Kermit, yeah.
You and Josh Mallerman are just two people that I want to extract your energy from, and just kind of, when I'm feeling tired, just give myself a shot of a Janz or a Mallerman, and I'll be good for probably a year.
Yeah, love that guy like a brother.
True, there's a market for that.
Yeah, so actually, this kind of relates to how you said, "Oh, I might have sounded foolish when I talked to Joe or whomever the first time." I definitely was like that when I talked to Mallerman when we first started recording. I talked to him quite a bit before through Messenger, but then like when we started recording, Brendan texts me, he's like, "Hey dude, calm down." And I'm like, I'm kind of fanboying right now. And the other guy that I can say this confidently is Jonathan Mayberry,
Yeah.
because Weird Tales means so much to me. And he's like, beyond that, he's just such a cool guy. And Brennan said I was fangirling over him. I'm like, well, I asked him if he'd adopt me and Brennan, but it's not a big deal.
No, it's fine. That's totally normal.
Yeah, not a weird, creepy question at all. I'm not blocked by all of his accounts. We're good. I did want to say you, Brian Keene, and Joe R. Lansdale are a direct influence for me. Again, I'm not ass kissing, so fuck you, Peanut Gallery. But no, in all seriousness, you guys are a direct influence for me with how you make family a priority, and in your own ways, basically say like, "Here's my lines. This is what I'm about." That's it. There's no negotiation because of me. I mean, I work, I write, I read, and I spend time with my family too, and I love it. And that's the best way. If I can not work, that'd be even better. But you know, so for me, I wanted to thank you for that, because I know it means a lot for like a guy that has always wanted to write. Like, silly enough, I always thought like you kind of had to be a little bit different. And when guys at work started finding out that I'm a writer, one said, "Oh, you got to start drinking now." And like, I don't really drink much, and that rubbed me internally, not externally. Internally, that rubbed me such the wrong way. Because I'm thinking, I'm like, well, I got to pass with that. And that's like kind of a sore spot for me. And I'm just going like, is that what people think? Screw him. I just want to be a family guy and be a writer, man. So like, you have granted me that realization that's a possibility. So thank you for that.
Hey, that's great to hear, man. And you talked about the other guys. Yeah, Brian is all about not letting me make any of the mistakes he made. He's had a great life and he's done amazing things, but he is emphatic about certain things. And I love that because it comes from a place of love, but he's constantly reminding me of what's important and to keep my priorities aligned. And I'm not saying I need that, but I think it never hurts to have those reminders from somebody we respect. Lansdale, we talked about that not long ago, but Joe talked about how there's certain you make choices, right? And Lansdale has accomplished so much. He's won every award there is, and he's written for movies and TV and comic books and all these things. And if he wanted to, he could have had that rock star lifestyle. He could have had multiple partners, and he could have lived with done a lot of substances and stuff. And I'm not judging anybody. But the thing with Joe is that he always just put his wife and his children first, and that's who he is. And I dig that. I like that. To me, that's, I don't know, that's appealing. It's like the other stuff just seems, I don't know, it's just not me. I would feel unstable. I would feel uncertain. It's just that would not be a kind of lifestyle that I would enjoy. Maybe I'm boring, but I just really like stability, and I think a lot of creatives do. I think that's the stereotype. Creatives are they're drunkards, they're they're tempestuous, they trash a hotel, all
Right.
this. I think maybe it's because we see so many, like we watch so many VH1 behind the music. But it's Poe, like people, if you just looked at the popular persona, it's all about the opium and it's all about this and that, and I just wonder what was the truth. And I wonder if he would have lived longer, how much more amazing stuff he would have written. Yeah, but I don't think that, to me, that tortured and destructive artist thing, that doesn't appeal to me at all.
No, yeah, right there with you. The Poe that I love to imagine the most is a story about him and his I'm not making fun of him when I say this, but I am laughing at it. him and his cousin wife in the Commons of Boston playing leapfrog, and he's just a dude that's having fun, and he loves this girl, and it's just like, yeah, I get it. Like, he went through some crazy shit. Like, dude, who would want to be alive back then? We are in the best time that you could possibly live ever at this moment. Like, we go to grocery stores. We don't have to hunt for our food. We don't have our food is, and I use this term loosely, is regulated. we we have doctors that have medicine, and back then, I mean, like, you could die from what? You can still die from like pneumonia now, but like the common flu and all, common cold and all that, that could have killed you very easily. I don't know. I'm not saying it's an excuse, but I would have wanted to live back then.
Me either, for sure.
I was very interested to see where you were going when you said we were alive in the best time. I'm like, I haven't heard anybody say that in like 8 months.
It is hard to say it during the pandemic. Yeah. No. Okay. So completely blanked on that one. Besides,
no, I agree with your points. I really do.
I had the same thought process. I totally agree that, yeah, I mean, I think that people romanticize the past, right? And yeah, the pandemic has been rough, but overall, modern times have a lot on times gone by. Yeah. Just medicine alone, right? It's much better than it used to be.
In an interview you had with Brian Keene, I think 2 or 3 years ago, it might have been longer. Actually, I don't. Sorry, I'm double thinking what I was going to say. I did hear him say in an older episode that he mentioned how you had an 11-book deal with Thunderstorm. I didn't hear anything else. I can't really find much about it. How? Like, that's, for me, that's unheard of. An 11-book deal.
Yeah, that was because of Brian and then Paul Goblersh, the guy. You know, we talk about great people, okay? All you writers who listen to this podcast, any of you or this show, any of you who are interested in working with great publishers, and there are a lot of great editors, publishers in the business, you're going to be hard pressed to find somebody better than Paul Goblersh, who's at Thunderstorm. That guy is the most just honest and true and he's more than author friendly. Like, when we talk about things, so Brian told Paul that Paul should do a deal with me. Paul and I talked, and then eventually he said, let's just do this 11-book thing, and that was incredible. So that was just limited editions of 11 of my books, and it was amazing, one of the best experiences I've ever had. But the thing with Paul is that during that whole thing, that whole process, since then, like, we at one point had this deal, and the deal was for a specific series of books, and he said, because there's a possibility of something happening with those. I don't want to say what it is, but it's like, you know, with other media, I guess we'll say. And the possibility of that happening, Paul was like, well, if that happens, I don't want anything to prohibit you from having that happen. And I'm afraid that if there's another version of this out there, that's going to scare off other potential buyers or publishers. And so let's not do the deal. Okay? So Paul here is like leaving money on the table because he's got such a following, man. He sells out everything.
Oh, yeah, I know.
He's just, he does some amazing work. So he knows he's going to make money. But he left money on the table in order to enhance my future prospects, right? What publisher does that? What publisher is that so generous, so unselfish that he is intentionally not making a profit so somebody else can have a shot at something later on? It's just incredible. And I know there are other great people in the business, but man, Paul is a prince. That guy's extraordinary.
Wow, that is pretty amazing. The short conversations I've had with him, I can back that up. And I know everyone that's talked about him likes him. His product is just, it's something that for me, because I can't afford buying any of those books at this point in my life.
I can't either.
You can't afford to buy your own books.
His books, I would not feel comfortable with bringing them outside of my house because they are just so beautiful.
They are. They're
It's art. It's artwork, man. Brendan,
Oh.
take it away, sir.
So, I mean, we've kind of run in circles around your books for the last like almost hour now. So,
Oh, wait, you write books? I thought you were a filmmaker.
Wrong set of notes, man.
Oh, damn it.
I would love to talk about The Raven. It's been out for about a month now, a month yesterday, I think. And what I thought was so cool about it, and I kind of want to get the inside the process here, is I know you wrote that book to have this standalone feel to it. It's a post-apocalyptic book that kind of presents a snippet of post-apocalypse, which is so rare. I mean, you typically see post-apocalyptic and it has to be ginormous in scope. It has to be 700 pages, or it has to, from the word go, be a series. And you just recently announced that you are starting work on book 2, Blood Country. So I'm curious, at what point did you say, yeah, this is a series?
Yeah, I think that I felt like when I wrote the book, it had to be self-contained. Okay, I'll just tell you. I'll just be honest. I forget which one of you mentioned this. I think Brennan, it might have been you. Was the Dark Tower series?
Mm.
Yeah, I love the Dark Tower. Okay, love it. And in the back of my mind, I had the Gunslinger in mind when I wrote it. And the Gunslinger is notable and it's distinct from the other books in that series because, and I want the Raven, of course, to be its own thing. It's not going to be, Jonathan Janz pretending to be Stephen King or whatever, but it is shorter than Drawing of the Three, shorter than The Wasteland, shorter, especially than like Wizard and Glass, and the others get really long, I think, the more we go. And we're glad to go along that journey. But the Gunslinger, I think, is the shortest one. And I wanted the Raven to be self-contained like that, and I wanted to have this kind of spare feeling, all right, a little more like an adrenaline shot. I wanted it to be a little bit like a Western, and I wanted it to feel intimate. So in order to do that, there wasn't that big, like World War Z scene, the Brad Pitt movie where you have the zombies running through the traffic jam overrunning. You don't have a scene like that in The Raven because it takes place 2 years afterward. And I always felt like, if I wanted to go back and capture the apocalypse, I'd be able to do that later on in later books. But I felt like this book wasn't that book. This book needed to feel very self-contained. It needed to feel like the Gunslinger, because the Gunslinger, I love the simplicity of that book. It's really kind of an elegant book. It's kind of beautiful in that way, where you have the scenes in the small town where he ends up. I don't want to give it all away, but
it's been out for like 40 years, man.
Flowing some blood in that town, and then you have the scene with the slow mutants. I think down subterranean moments, right? The moments with Jake. I think are really just kind of lyrical and poetic, and they've got that amazing Western feel to them, kind of elemental. So I wanted to capture those kinds of emotions and that sensibility in the Raven, but still knowing that the world could be opened up later on for a series too. So I guess I was trying to do both as I wrote it, but I was laser focused on the first installment. Sorry for being so long-winded. You get me excited talking about this stuff, man.
Hey, that was an open-ended question. So
we should obviously follow that up with what's your favorite installment if you had to make the tough decision of picking one book from the Dark Tower series.
Oh, that's rude.
That question applies to you too, Brennan.
I'm going to say the Wastelands.
Yes.
So much I love about that. So much I love about that book. It's just amazing. It's a work of art. I love them all, but that's probably my favorite. Brendan, what do you think?
I think if pressed, I'd have to go with Wizard and Glass. I really
Choice. That was my second choice. Fine.
and I do love the Wastelands, obviously, but I think if I had a runner up, it would probably be Drawing of the Three. I just love the way, and I'm kicking myself now that I didn't see all the parallels between the Gunslinger and the Raven, because they are there, they are so there, but I love the way that Drawing of the Three takes that kind of cozy small mythos and just blows the doors wide open. And it certainly goes from there. There's lots of different elements introduced after that second book, but it's the second book that basically sets the stage for what's possible in the rest of that series.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And Wizard and Glass, that one, you know why? I don't know, man. Drawing of the Three is right there too. Wizard and Glass, the reason why I couldn't put that first, and this is actually a compliment to the book, Rhea, that character Rhea, I hate her so much. Back to that book. What a villain. She's so awful.
Yeah,
she's so sadistic.
She's terrible.
It was so painful what she does in that book to a very important character, right?
Yep.
And I go back and I'm haunted by that. I'm still disturbed and haunted by what she does. And so it's a hard book for me to revisit, even though it's an absolute masterwork, man. That is a master. So good.
Yeah, I mean, just you generally know the way that story is going to go, but the journey to get there is just, it's something else. And, I'm disappointed that they commissioned that Dark Tower series for, I think it was Amazon Prime, and it was going to begin with a retelling of Wizard and Glass, and then they ended up shelving it. So the fact that we'll never get to, well, at least not anytime soon, we won't get to see that. That's disappointing, especially after the 2017-ish movie that we had to sit through.
I haven't seen it.
That's okay. I bought it. I went to see it in the theater, and I was not. It didn't remotely capture the spirit of anything that those books went for. They tried to put seven like 300 to 1,200 page books into a 90-minute movie, which is just objectively a bad idea.
Should be an HBO series.
Yeah, yeah, that would definitely be interesting. So I wonder, going back to the Raven, because as thrilled as I am to talk Stephen King, it'd be weird if somebody tuned in to find out about Jonathan Janz and they just listened to us talk about Stephen King for 2 hours. When you were writing the Raven, did you find that, because you introduced this idea where humanity has, folklore monsters and stuff buried in their genes, and the apocalypse is pretty much science unleashing that. Was there anything you wanted to put in book one and you said, nope, hold back? Or did you kind of do everything you wanted?
No, there are definitely some things that I had that I wanted to hold back. I mean, maybe I showed a glimpse of them. Like there's going to be a book later on where the satyrs are very, very featured. And I have some specific ideas about what I want to do with that, because that could go off the rails really, really easily. But I think that there's a lot, like if you do that the right way, there's a lot to be said about that particular kind of beast and that mythos. So there's a glimpse of the satyrs in one of the characters' backstories. I knew vampires were going to be the lead villains in the second book, so I didn't feature them much. So there were some of the characters, some of the creatures that I didn't either didn't mention at all because I'm saving them for later, or that I just mentioned fleetingly because I wanted to explore them in greater depth later on. But yeah, you do have that kind of kitchen sink feel in one of the big set pieces, as I'm sure you remember or know what I'm talking about. Where there are a lot of powers on display and a lot of creatures in the mix.
Yeah, and the I won't spoil it, but there's one particular creature that's introduced towards the end, and I said to myself, I said, I did not see that coming. Out of all the potential folkloric creatures that we could have had our big bad be, that wasn't one I pictured, which just absolutely opens the door to there's so much you could introduce. When you go to mythologies around the world, where you make this a global thing. I am excited out of my mind just thinking about the possibilities, and I know that you've got the wheels turning, and you're partially through book 2 now. I'm very excited to see where it goes from there.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, I think that this is a global mythology that we're dealing with, and so there's so much is on the table, so much is possible when you look at it through that lens. But yeah, I didn't know for sure. I knew that character. I mean, the character to whom we're referring is Keaton, and he's the main villain of the book. He's this flesh peddler, and I had a feeling. I knew he was. He was not a latent. I knew he was not just a normal human being. I wasn't really sure until maybe halfway through the book, and I started writing the character, and he started interacting. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's that. And then when I realized then it was a lot of fun to write. But I didn't even know what he was going to be. And kind of like you, for me, that kind of opened things up too, because I'm like, well, if that can happen, then this is on the table too. And I do think it stays grounded. I think it fits with the mythos of the tale. But like you said, I think it does do some expanding, which like you, I'm excited about. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
The whole idea of folklore in horror, and you're absolutely right. Again, I'm going to try and tiptoe around spoilers here, but like the initial ones that you set out, you see vampires, werewolves, things like that, things that have an iteration in most areas of the world. But then you think, okay, again, you said the one you saw, well, if I can do Keaton this way, then that opens up this particular mythology, which means that if this one's on the table, then this one's on the table, then this one's on the table. It's just, oh my gosh, like you you could have a lot of fun, and you could do this for years.
Sure, for sure, man.
Did you work with Don Daria on this one?
Let's see. Don ended up, and Flame Tree ended up publishing it, of course. And Don gave me some helpful notes like he always does. It was pretty much polished by the time it got to him. I mean, relatively polished. Don always comes up with some good ideas too. But yeah, I think it was pretty well done before that. One guy that really helped a lot, Todd Clark is a pre-reader of mine. He helps a lot. Another guy named Tim Slaughter, he's a really helpful guy. But this guy that I'm friends with, because there is, even though it's an intimate story focused on the present time, it is necessary to establish how this happened. And I try to do that as expediently as I can. I don't devote 100 pages to the apocalypse, but if you don't mention at all how it happens, then it's like, the world ended. So important to at least, start to give some sort of explanation. And I have a friend who is really, I hear people say this so often, it sounds so false when I say it, but he is a rocket scientist. He works with NASA. And it seems like everybody says that, and everybody has a friend who does that. But I promise it's true. And this guy, it's like he was explaining, I learned so much and actually lost so much sleep because he was talking about like how fallible our missile defense systems are. So I thought, oh, we're safe. And he's like, no, not at all. Like this could happen. And this is what, if you were going to disperse this virus, this is how you do it. And I'm like, well, that seems so easy. He's like, yeah. Like, oh my gosh. So it's really made me a little paranoid. But it was really, he's the one, BJ, this BJ Austin is his name, but he was the one who really helped me a lot with the science, and really taught me more than I wanted to know. Actually, I spent the last couple of years trying to forget it.
Well, those are definitely important, because basically, I forget, one of you probably know. Actually, it's Mark Twain. You got to know the facts before you can bend the rules, something like that.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true. Because if you start writing about this stuff from a layman's point of view, someone's going to call you out on it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's important too. I think with research, I think it's so important that, you stay like in character, okay? So it's like for Des, my protagonist, he's not a scientist. So to try to pass him off as one would have seemed really it would have rung false. And I think readers would have really seen that. And sometimes you read a story where an author, you can just tell the author is just showing off what he's learned.
Yeah.
And and it's like, okay, dude, all right, we know you read for this, we know you prepared for this. That's great. Let's go on with the story now. Because you never want the story to be sacrificed for the research. But then if you don't research, then that's going to compromise the story. So it's trying to find a way that it's organic for that research to permeate the story in a way that's not distracting for the reader, where the writer doesn't rear his head. And that's always something I try to do, because I felt that was, I'm not going to say that there's a really, really famous writer who's a great writer, but sometimes I feel like he really starts to just show off how much he's learned in his research. Nobody we've mentioned tonight, and nobody I'd ever say. Maybe in private I'll say it to you guys.
Not Stephen King then.
No, it's not. No, heck no. But because I feel like when he uses it, he does it with humility. Like and he always says it like in his liner notes, right? Like in his acknowledgments, he'll say, if there's something right, it's because of this guy. If it's something wrong, it's because of me, right?
I always loved that humble tone that he puts it out with.
What a concept, humility,
yeah.
right?
Yep.
And occasionally, though, you feel like there are authors that want to, just show how much they know. and I certainly never want to pass myself off that way as some sort of, expert when I'm not. Yeah.
Brent, is there anything else on this particular book that you want to talk about?
No, but that's actually a really excellent segue to something else I wanted to talk about. So, I mean, you've got with that, with your output being that of somebody who only writes and doesn't work a day job, you've got a number of things either slated at some point to come out or in the works right now. And I think one of the ones that I'm personally most excited about is Amity. And obviously I'm excited about it because Jaws is probably the closest thing we'll get to a perfect horror movie or a perfect movie. But having heard you talk in great length about Jaws on the Necronomicon.com, your passion for that, makes me think that your knowledge of that, your understanding of that movie is going to be put into that, is going to be written into that book the way that you would write something every day, the way you would write relationships, the way you would write creeping terror. It's just, it's entirely innate. And I'm so interested to see what you can do with that project. What can you tell us about it?
I love the way you said that. And I think I think that authenticity shines through, right? And I couldn't talk about every movie the way I talk about Jaws, and just because it is, like you said, I think it's perfect. It's so special. And so the passion is real. And so when I write about that, like the characters themselves are mostly Jaws fans. So it's going to make sense for them. One of them, like there's a character who's he's on the, so, okay. So should I give you a synopsis? I don't know. Should I talk about what?
Sure.
Yeah.
So basically, there's these two characters. They're not the main characters, but they're important to the story. There's a billionaire who dies, and his irresponsible son inherits everything. He's got a younger sister who's 17, and she doesn't yet have any power. She's a major character, though. She's a more important character than he is. But he and his buddy, who is the son of so the billionaire who dies owns an island, and the irresponsible son and his best friend their lifelong dream is to transform the island into a replica of Amity Island from Jaws, also though with a huge amusement park devoted to Jaws. And the irresponsible son's best friend is kind of like the one pushing all this. He's not the one with the money, but he manipulates his friend who has the money. The best friend is the son of the nearby coastal town's mayor. Okay, so there's a mayor, of course, in this, and it's a dying coastal town, and they need summer dollars, and the son of that mayor is the one kind of pushing for this whole amusement park the most. Okay, he's manipulating everything, and so the story begins like 2 weeks before the park opens, and it's like a disaster because it's not being run well. Horrible decisions are being made. The two people co-running it are the son of the mayor, who is this greedy, conniving jerk, and then this woman. And I don't, not to get too political here, but I'm not a fan of Betsy DeVos. She
No way. Jonathan, how dare you?
I know the patience of education.
Follow-up question: how dare you?
This character named Betsy here. I don't know if I am that, but she's the other one who's been brought in to manage this amusement park, and she's horrible. And so those are the two that are preparing it. So my main character, Nick Shaw, of course, you guys know where Shaw comes from. Nick Shaw gets brought in by the mayor, who's actually a decent guy. There's a little bit of irony, right? He gets brought in to try to bring order to this disaster about to happen, this amusement park about to open. So he's one of the main characters. The 17-year-old little sister is another main character because she's a really good person who knows so much more than her brother does. And then the third main character is Sylvie Perez, and she is the police chief of this nearby coastal town. All right, and so she's going to be. So there are three real protagonists who kind of share the. So she's the police chief, and then yeah. So all of these they connect to Jaws characters, and it's its own story, but it's certainly a love letter to Jaws. It's a suspense thriller. There's nothing supernatural about it. It's all suspense. It's all of our world, but it's definitely a horror novel too. And it's I don't know. I think. I feel like it has a sense of humor, but I also feel like it works as a thriller. And it's so big right now, though, guys. It's like 170,000 words.
Holy shit!
It's really long. So I don't know when it's going to be ready. My goal is to have it ready by the time Jaws' 50th anniversary, which is like 2025. So it might not come out for a while. I mean, I hope it's not that long. But it's going to be a couple years before I have it ready. These other projects I have, I think I'm going to be able to have in shape before that one, just because it's so long. And there are actually like two climaxes to the story right now. And I'm not sure if I'm going to end it after the first one or include the second one. There's so much for me to do. There's a lot of work here to be done on Amity. But the point is the bones of the story are really good, and I'm really proud of it. Yeah.
Sounds pretty. I didn't know that synopsis. That sounds really cool.
I think that's more than I've ever talked about it. So there you go. I mean, I probably I didn't prepare my elevator pitch, so sorry it wasn't very concise. But I've never talked about it that much. So it's kind of talk about.
Two exclusives on our show. Just one quick question about it is where's it based?
Off of Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah, I love Virginia, man. So there's this mythical island off of the coast of Virginia that's being turned into Amity.
Cool.
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering when and if we would ever get like a Janz doorstop novel, like a 400, 500 or more. Hey, this could be it, and I'll read that.
That could be it. That could be the doorstop.
All right, so sign Janz up for 2024 or 2025 on the show. So you were kind of leaning in towards other books, which I really wanted to talk about. Two in particular, but the one that would apply to this month is Halloween Gods, and you've talked about it on other shows, so I'm not really asking you to talk about anything you don't want to talk about or repeat, but if you would want to talk about a quick synopsis just to entice people who haven't heard it yet, because I've got follow-up questions I don't think you've been asked for about with the theme of Halloween.
I'm so excited about it. I'm so excited about it. Guys, every time I write a book, I think that this is the book that's going to end my career. I think it's every time I write one, I think this is awful. Like when I wrote Siren and the Specter, The two of the books I felt worst about were Siren and the Specter and Children of the Dark. I had a meltdown with Children of the Dark. I'm like, this is going to be the most. People are going to laugh at me. People are going to hate this. There's not going to. The best review will be 2 stars. This is just going to be. And then when in Siren and the Spectre, I just felt like I just had created a disaster after the rough draft. And then I ended up. Those are 2 of my favorite books now. Okay, so it's not normal for me to be excited about like something this early in the process. But I'm in my first run through on Halloween Gods right now. I'm so excited about it. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's the best book ever written or whatever, but I'm more excited on reading through the first draft than I've ever been about any book I've ever read. I just really am so excited. I wrote I was talking to Mallerman earlier today and told him, I sent him a synopsis, and it's pretty short. So if you want to hear it, here we go. So is it okay? It's like,
yeah, no, yeah, we're listening, dude. We're both very excited to hear it.
For 11 months, the house remains dormant, nestled in the forest and fortified by towering wrought iron fencing. But every year on October 1st, it comes to life. Suffocated by their small town, which is being held hostage by bullying upperclassmen and a child kidnapper labeled the Body Snatcher, 5 teenagers drive to the October House and find its gates open for the first time. They enter the property as frightened, deeply troubled kids. They leave with talents, supernatural abilities that will grow stronger until reaching their apex on Halloween. But when they realize how evil humankind can be, the teens will have to choose between using their gifts for justice or revenge. All right, so that's like the quick synopsis of it. But I really feel like these 5 teens, these 5 main characters, it alternates between or among these 5 characters. I just really like them. I like them. I think that they're complex characters, but I think they're very authentic characters. There is something of me in each one, even though 3 of them are female and 2 are male. I feel like they ring true. Their characters ring true, and I like that. There are very few moments. I mean, I'm going to trim it. It's like 130,000 words now, and I'm going to try to make it muscular. I'm going to try to get it way down to maybe like 90 or 95. But I just feel like the story is there, and it's like as I read it, there's so much more that I like than I don't like. And guys, I never feel that way. So I am more excited about Halloween Gods maybe than I've been about any rough draft I've ever done.
Wow.
Yeah.
For starters, the Body Snatcher is such a cool name, man. Like that.
Yeah.
I like the
Jack Finney. What is it? Invasion of the Body Snatchers? Jack Finney.
Yeah.
And Body Snatcher, was it Robert Louis Stevenson? I think wrote a story called The Body Snatcher. I've always loved that phrase. I've always loved the Body Snatcher, man. So go ahead. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
I like the synopsis. I like that name too. I really don't have any more questions about the book because I don't want to have anything ruined. It sounds like something that's very intriguing, and your general attitude and excitement towards it makes me excited. So I can't wait for that. But I actually, since this is coming out in October, and we are recording in October, I had a few questions pertaining to Halloween. Before I ask those, Brent, do you want to talk a little bit about this book? Do you have any questions for Jonathan?
I would just say that, you know, when I'm listening to that synopsis, like if I listened to that without the title of the book handy and you said The October House, I would say that's the title. But then as soon as you hit me with Halloween Gods, no, that's the title.
That's a really cool name.
Like, yeah. It's like you're lining up the like snippets there. It's awesome. I can't wait for that.
Well, thank you. And I think I did the same thing with the title. Like The October House was one that I considered. I liked it. I like that. That's a good title. And it reminds me of Bradbury. You know, Bradbury is a major influence on me, and he's a major influence on this book. And he wrote The October Country and Something Wicked This Way Comes. He's like Mr. Halloween. And that's what they call the guy who owns the October House. They call him Mr. until they meet. Okay, and then he gets a name. But in the beginning, they just call him Mr. Halloween because that's the legend around him. But anyway, yeah. But then Halloween Gods, Again, I don't mean to sound like a tool here, but I like that title too. I think it's a good title. So I think it's the right book with the right title at the right time. I'm pumped. So thank you for saying that.
I can see it across the top of a book, and like that's for me when I am so bad. I hate coming up with titles. I'm so bad at it, and I just don't like doing it. So like if I can, when I come up with one I like, if I can kind of picture it like gracing the top of a book, I'm like, okay, that's the one.
Nice.
And Halloween Gods definitely fits that bill.
Yeah, as soon as I saw you announce it, I was like, that's such a cool name, man. So I have a few questions. So let's have a little fun with this. First question is, and Brennan, please jump in at any point. Do you have any favorite Halloween memories as a child? Oh, sorry, Jonathan.
I remember once my birthday is October 27th, so I always had a birthday / Halloween celebration.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean like a sleepover. I shouldn't make it like it was a big deal, but I had a sleepover, and then my friends and I remember. I remember.
I don't know why it's funny, but it's funny. It's laughing.
Things that are kind of funny because one of them was my friends wanted to go corning, like throwing corn that had been whatever shucked off the cob, like hard corn, throw it at houses. That was something that I was a fourth grader, okay, but they wanted to go corning.
Was that Max Booth III that suggested that to you as a kid?
I don't know why that was the appealing thing, but it was something. And my mom was the nicest. She was younger than the other moms. She was 21 when she had me. So, at that point I was a fourth grader. So I would have been 10. So she was 30, 31. And anyway, she was trying to make sure that she knew about it. And my friends couldn't believe that she knew about it. And they couldn't believe we didn't have to sneak out. Because they were being all surreptitious, about it, and they were like, "Dude, we can't." And my mom was like, "Do you guys have all that you need for corning?" She can't. She knows. And I remember that we went out and started throwing the corn at people's houses. I wasn't a hellion. I wasn't a destructive kid.
It's a rapscallion.
Yeah, one of the few acts of rebellion. But I remember the police came by. And they were shining their lights, and I was hiding. I don't think I'd ever been that scared because I was sure I was going to get arrested at age 10. And then we ended up running. I set the world land speed record going home. But I was just that's one Halloween memory, one of my few little rebellious acts as a kid. And I think I threw a total of one handful of corn at somebody's siding before I got really uncomfortable, and then eventually was chased home by the police. All right, well, you guys tell a better story. You got something better.
Oh man. Okay. I didn't. Oh, the tables are turned. Brennan, why don't you go?
I grew up in this real white bread town, and nothing interesting ever happened. The one, and it's not even eventful, but the one thing I remember always, urban legend or whatever, I always remember talking about. I would always go with a group of 3 friends, and I think that our houses were probably at most 1.5 miles away, the furthest 2. So we would go to the neighborhood around one of ours, and then the next one, and the next one. And there was a cemetery near one of my friends' houses, and we heard this urban legend that on Halloween that it would be inhabited with members of the Latin Kings gang, which, given the town I grew up in, was absolutely not true, and I don't know why we ever believed it. But we would, the quickest way to get from one neighborhood to the other was to cut through this cemetery, and we would always just run like absolute hell, completely convinced that we were going to get jumped by a gang. And the happy ending is we never did. No gang activity ever. Just candy and, moderate shenanigans. All right, Patrick, you had time to think. Also, you came up with the question, so I mean, you probably should have prepared something.
Well, I got one that has no real ending, and then I got one that's probably. A fun memory. So I got an answer. The first one was so I grew up in a town called Bridgewater. It's been mentioned. There's a state prison in there. It's been mentioned as like a background thing on like Mindhunter, that show on Netflix. Um, so maybe it sounds familiar, but it's based off of the actual prison. Well, anyways, I live like my parents' house is maybe 2 miles from the prison. And one one night on Halloween, turns out there was a prisoner that escaped. So I don't remember what happened with me specifically because I was too young, but I just remember I was dressed up like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I was ready to get some candy, and I don't think I got candy that night. But the good story, the full story, the other one was I won a Halloween contest for my town. Whoever decorated whoever basically had the coolest decorations, and I've always loved Halloween. My mom's always been supportive of that, and my dad has as well. And I just remember like college kids when I was in grammar school would like this one in a kiddie pool I had to the entrance of the door would be just filled with sand. Have this old school hockey mask that my dad used to have when he played hockey, and would have the gloves, and it would look like he was just in the quicksand trying to grasp the final breaths of air that he could get before he was sucked in. I would dress up and scare people, and I would just go crazy with decorating the house. And um, I won a contest where I was interviewed by the local news and just talked about it. I don't remember what I said. I wish I had that footage, but that's a fun memory. I was like, this is cool. I'm being recognized as like, hey, you do this thing that's kind of weird, but which is neat because what other genre has an entire month where it's celebrated throughout the world? Like romance, yeah, you got Valentine's Day, but we're not celebrating that stuff, you know? Western doesn't, sci-fi doesn't. Halloween, man, that's horror.
Yeah.
And it's insane to me how many people say they don't like horror. They like stick their noses up at it, but like everyone loves horror in one way or another. Like everyone does, man. And they just don't realize it because they view horror like I've gotten like, oh, you like horror? You write it? They're just thinking it's like blood and gore, and we're just crazy people. Super side note: when I was selected for a juror the only time, they asked what my hobbies are, and I said, well, I write and I read horror and some sci-fi and fantasy. And in my head, I'm like, the moment I say horror, I'm not going to get selected. I'll get to go home. I was selected, so I was like, oh, damn it. I thought they weren't going to pick because of that. But yeah, that's it. My follow-up question was if you have a favorite costume. That's it, Jonathan or Brennan. Just if you have a favorite costume that you've ever worn, or you know what, let's make it more interesting. If you've had a favorite set of costumes, if you've ever done one with your family, your wife and kids, either one of you.
Yeah, I tell you what. Looking back, this was embarrassing at the time. I remember. You guys remember Jake the Snake Roberts? Have you ever heard of him? He was in
The
the
wrestler.
wrestler. Okay, so I was into that. I was in the WWF, is what it was called back when I was like a sixth or seventh grader, and I had changed schools. And there was at my old school there was a Halloween party, and I thought everybody was going to dress up, and I had this vision to be Jake the Snake, and so my mom to go buy me. So Jake the Snake wore these tights that had like a snake wrapping around the leg. And my mom, we were poor, and she was so nice and supportive. I was like, Mom, can you find me these like spandex wrestling tights with Jake the Snake? And this wasn't back when you ordered things off of Amazon, right? This is when you had to drive to the mall and go from store to store. Couldn't find anything, so she just got me black sweatpants and then this satin red fabric, and she cut out a snake and sewed it around the leg of that. And then I looked like a total idiot. And it was freezing cold, maybe that saved me because if I would have gone shirtless like Jake the Snake, I would have ended up being more of an idiot. But I wore a black sweatshirt and these black pants with a red snake on them. And then my friend and I, who also dressed up, we like painted our faces. My friend from my new school, and we go to my old school, and we're the only two dressed up. Got this snake around my leg. It's falling off because it was coming unpinned, and we're wearing face paint, and we look like fools. So even looking back, it was mortifying at the time, but looking back, I'm like, what a cool mom. It was so nice of her to put all that and to try to sew that for me. So that meant a lot. And then with my own kids, I've done like zombie makeup for them, and that's fun. And my son was Pennywise one year. That was fun. So it's always a blast to do that kind of stuff. All right, you guys go ahead.
Brendan.
My 10-year-old is going to be Pennywise this year. He loves those movies. He just started watching the videos on YouTube, and we were like, we should really, whatever. It's if we say no, he's still gonna watch them on YouTube. I suppose we could get YouTube Kids, but he seems fine with it, so he doesn't, go around mimicking it or anything. But so I think that the Ninja Turtles cartoon, the one with the legendary theme song and Uncle Phil playing the voice of Shredder, came out in 87, so I would have been about 3 years old. And I'm pretty sure I dressed up as a Ninja Turtle every year from 4 until probably at least 12. Just that's you want to try something different this year? No, I do not. I'll change the color of my bandana if you like, but I'm going to be a turtle again this year. I'll need a sword this year because I'm Leonardo. I'll need nunchucks. And you know what? That was fine. I eventually got to a point where everybody, this person's dressed as a zombie, this person's dressed as Michael Myers, and I'm still got like these like Ninja Turtle pajamas on and a plastic sword, and I'm like, nope, cool, I'm fine. I'm good with it. This is what I want.
That's awesome. I got 2 quick ones. One, because they're both fun, and I think you both would enjoy at least one of them. The last year, my wife, she came. I'm originally from Massachusetts. She is from Jersey. That's why I'm down in South Jersey now. But she went to college in Providence, so she lived off campus with her girlfriends on camp in Providence. And it was neat because, like, side note, I know he's like got a lot of issues, but I thought it was cool how there's little bits of artwork of Lovecraft near her house. I really enjoyed that. But I dressed up as Walter White, aka Heisenberg, and I shaved my head in real life, so that worked. I normally have a beard. I had a goatee just for that night because my wife's like, don't really like it. I'm like, all right, bye, goatee. But I got the glasses and whatnot, and I just remember we got this rock candy that was blue, and we said it was Walter's Treats, and everyone that came to the party thought it was fun, and because he's a psycho, and like I'm just a big goofy teddy bear, such as yourself, John. I don't know if I've told you that, but but I just remember at one point I was very hot. I was in that hazmat suit. I had like a white T-shirt, a white wife beater with the yellow hazmat suit on, and I'm like, I gotta go outside. And my friend smokes cigarettes, so he's like, oh, I'll go for a smoke. So we're out in the front. It's right on a public street sidewalk that's like 4 feet wide. This car pulls up onto the curb. This random dude's just rolling down his window. He's got the same hazmat suit pulled down, and he's like, hey, yo, you're an Ebola worker, right? And that's when Ebola was really big. And I'm like, sure, yeah. And then he drove off. I'm like, that was weird. And I had been drinking that night, so I'm sure it played out a little bit more exaggerated in my head at the time. But the funnest costume that I was dressed as was Michael Myers. I had the mask, I had the uniform, and this is weird. I don't know why this happened. I went to a friend's house in a neighborhood that was surrounded by trees, lots of like basically a labyrinth of streets of the suburban Massachusetts area. I guess it could pass for Haddonfield. It was dark, and I don't know why, but my friend wasn't there. So I was like, I'm just going to walk around. That's all I did. And there were parents that were like, oh, it's so cool. It's Michael Myers. And kids were like freaked out. And in my head, that's what really hooked me into horror from the age of 12 on, was watching slashers. And I love Halloween, the series. And I was like, this is working. Siri just came on. Uh-oh, I'm being tracked. I don't know if you guys heard that, but Siri just popped on. Not sure why. So that was it. It was just me walking around a neighborhood being creepy without a knife, and parents thought it was awesome. The kids were terrified of me. So that's
awesome. Yeah.
that's it. I just had one more question. I'm actually really curious. I have not heard you say this before. Maybe I missed it. But do you have a favorite Halloween themed movie? Jonathan. Sorry, I should specify.
Yeah, it's okay. Halloween themed movie.
Yep.
Yeah, this is like the ultimate cop out, but you were just talking about it. I love Halloween.
Yeah.
I love that movie. That is such a lean, mean thriller. It's a work of art. Also, and I don't think it has I don't think it's as, I don't know. I mean, for me, it's like Jaws is on its own level with just a couple other movies, but Halloween is one of the best thrillers and horror movies, suspense movies ever made. It's just so relentless, and John Carpenter he's so perfect the way he withheld Michael and when he revealed Michael and how he showed that villain and the music he used. It's just it's so beautifully done. I know that's like the cop out answer, but I think it's the best Halloween movie I can think of. And it's one of my favorite horror movies of all time. I love it. It only gets better with age.
That's not a cop-out. It's a classic for a reason. I also happen to be, if I had to pick one, I think I'd go with two. Because it's basically extension. It's an extension of one, and I love one too. And this is a weird answer. I didn't accept this for my own personal view for a while, but I really like three. And I didn't like it because I fought with myself. I'm like, but Michael's not even in it. They just show a clip on a TV screen of him. Yeah, one's a classic. Brennan, what is your choice?
What is my favorite Halloween themed movie that doesn't have Halloween in the title? Right? You know what? I'm gonna go with Hocus Pocus. I loved that movie growing up, and my boys absolutely dig it. So it's had kind of a resurgence in my house year round for the last probably 2-3 years. And there's a reason it's still around. I think that came out in like 93. It hits all the notes. It's got good music in it. It's got like Bette Midler is just fantastic in it. It's a good story, and of course it's got that hometown vibe because it takes place in Salem.
I got one complaint with that. There's no Boston accent, man. We're from that area. I don't hear any Boston accent from any character.
That's not a complaint. That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's true. Dumb it down.
If they saturate it with Boston accents, it never would have lasted past 90
That's true. You know what? Yeah. I don't know about you, Jonathan, how you feel about your own local accents, but for me, I love Marky Mark. I love Matt Damon and Affleck, but I'm glad I don't have the accent as thick as some of my friends because I feel like I'd kind of come off as this is going to sound so rude, but a little less intelligent than I am. So it's a low bar, man.
Where we're from, we don't feel that way about your accent. I can tell you that. At least I don't. I think it sounds kind of, I don't know, like when you hear Matt Damon and Ben Affleck in Good Will Hunting, it's kind of like this sounds cool and tough and streetwise.
Yeah.
Not unintelligent. At least that's not how it sounds to my ears.
I'm just thinking of clips from Family Guy, so my sample is terrible.
It does have that kind of that kind of tough guy like working class attitude to it.
Yeah.
That's a great way to look at it, actually, in all seriousness. My answer has the word Halloween in it. It's Halloween Town, the Disney movie.
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen Hocus Focus. I haven't seen either of those movies.
Oh, I think your family would really. That'd be a family movie, man. Hocus
Yep.
Pocus. Yeah.
There's a lot less stabbing in it than Halloween, but yeah, it seems like it could definitely be up your alley. Although I know I've heard you talk about how sometimes you're not allowed to watch certain movies because you get emotional and everybody gets upset with that. But that Hocus Pocus could possibly push you into that territory at a couple parts. So I don't want to take the blame if that happens.
My daughters are going to come looking for you. They're the ones. They're the police. They do not like it. My son always defends me, man. He's like, "It's cool, Dad. Don't. You're fine. You're fine." And my daughter's like, "Oh, come on, Dad. Stop." And then
Is there anything that you want to maybe announce or cover, Jonathan, before we wrap up? We've actually been talking for almost 2 hours now.
yeah, this has been a blast. No, I don't really have anything to cover. Just I hope you all are listening to this or watching this. I hope you guys read The Raven. I'm really excited about it. I've started work on the sequel, and I am very happy with the way that's going. But no, I've just had a blast. So you guys, that was awesome. I loved the questions you guys asked. I thought I don't know. I thought we went to some interesting areas. It's always fun to cover material you haven't covered before, and I think we've also done that, which is a blast.
This has been as fun as I was hoping it would be. I echo what you said. I had a good time. And we definitely want you back whenever you have a new book out. So that's like twice a year. Mark it.
Now, speaking of, I don't expect an answer, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask if you had any updates on release for The Dismembered or Children of the Dark 2.
Yeah, The Dismembered, I'm pretty sure is 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure.
I hope so.
Yeah, me too. I love that cover. I'm very fond of the book, obviously, and Cemetery Dance is amazing. So I'm looking forward to that. And then Children of the Dark 2, that is the $1 million question. I'm not really sure when that's going to come out yet. It's painful because there are a billion ways to do that. And there are a lot of possibilities with how I could do that or with whom I could work. I just haven't made a decision yet. Ryan is my manager, and he and I have talked a lot about it, and we kind of have some ideas, but we're both kind of waiting, and we're going to see. But whenever it gets published, I think people will like it. I'm really proud of it. I think it turned out better than I could have hoped it would. So yeah, I appreciate you asking. And I wish I had a better answer. I feel like a politician.
No, that's okay. You gave me the exact answer I expected, but I had to throw it out there on the off chance where, you came in with, hey, now that you mention it, we just set a date of February 20. No, I'm looking forward to both. You're right. That cover on The Dismembered is fantastic. And obviously Cemetery Dance has that rep. Like, they've got to be a great press to work with. Yeah. And, the second I turned the last page on Children of the Dark and found out you were working on a sequel, I've been ready for that.
Awesome to hear, man. I appreciate it. And I do hope I have news soon, but I just appreciate everybody who wants to read it. So I always take that in a really, really positive way. So I love it when people ask.
Where can people follow you?
Yeah, I think the best place, I've got a website, jonathanjanz.com, but it's not updated as often as it should. I mean, you can go there to sign up for my newsletter is probably the best reason to go there. So I would do that. Sign up for my newsletter for sure. I don't do it that often. I probably I'm only averaging, I don't know, 4 or 5 a year. But I feel like there's always meaningful stuff in there, at least meaningful to me. So follow me on my newsletter, which you can find on my website. And then other than that, I'm active on Twitter, Jonathan Janz, and then Instagram, and to a lesser degree Facebook. I'm on there less and less, but I still am on there sometimes. But definitely Twitter and Instagram are good places to follow me and sign up for the newsletter. Yeah.
Fantastic. And just before we go, me and Brennan made a conscious discussion to mention this at the very end, that we have noticed a really rapid increase in one country that's got downloads way more than I ever expected. That is India through the service Ghana. That is a platform that is India based. It's their largest streaming service. We notice. We just want to let anyone know that is listening from that service or is from India that has listened to this show, has listened to this episode in particular. We would like you to get in touch with us, reach out to Jonathan too, because I'm sure he'd appreciate a fan base out there. Not to imply he doesn't, but to follow us, you can follow us on Twitter. That is our most active place we go. It is dead_headspace, spelt like it sounds. We appreciate your time, Jonathan. I stick to my statement that you are the sweetheart of the horror community. I just appreciate you talking to us, man. You're very, very nice and very good at what you do. So please keep it up. I am kissing your ass, though. It's gonna. I give shits what people think about me. What a terrible way to end an episode.
No. No, you're very kind, and I consider you both friends. So both of you, I appreciate taking the time because this is your time is as valuable as mine. I'm honored to be on the show, and I had a blast, and you guys do a fantastic job. So thank you for your kindness, and thanks for trying to take my rambling and making something semi-coherent. I appreciate it.
Brennan, I don't want to stop recording unless you got something to say, man.
No, I'm good. I would echo all that. Thank you for your time stuff. We appreciate you making the time for us. You have been somebody we wanted to make sure we got on here since day one, and it's awesome that we were able to make it happen.
Yeah, you and Josh Malman were a bucket list item, as were a few people that we can talk about off air. Jonathan Janz, check him out. He has The Raven that just came out, many more books to come out. I wasn't joking. He's got about 2 books that come out a year, per year. Brennan, thank you as always for your time. Couldn't make a good show without you, sir. John, thank you, sir. And all our listeners, especially the new ones in India or who listen through Ghana, thank you so much. We notice, we want to hear from you, so please reach out. Everybody have a great day.